Alright, a little introduction music to an introduction video. This is the video for AP Calculus AB, which is the only type of calculus class that we offer here at Odyssey. The AB class is equivalent to Calculus 1 at CSN or UNLV or UNR or pretty much any other college. The class here is to prepare you for the AP exam. If you're taking this class, you are planning to take the AP exam so that you can get the benefit of hopefully Calculus 1 credit going into your college classes, into your college career. Now, if you don't plan on taking the AP exam, then I think that this is the wrong class for you. You're going to want to talk to your counselor about seeing if you can get into something else. Now, I have some suggestions for what I call suggestions for success. By the way, I'm Mr. Turner. Here I am, okay? And these suggestions are pretty much the same as suggestions in probably most of your other classes. The first suggestion is to stay current, stay caught up, do this week's material the week it's assigned. Don't fall behind if at all possible. If you do fall a little bit behind, get caught up as quickly as you can. Come in an extra day, whatever it takes to get you caught up, spend more time on it at home. Learn the material, second one. What I mean by learn the material, I mean don't just be able to get the questions answered, because there are websites that you can find that have solutions to questions, but understand what the material is about. Make sure that you can work the problems out without having to have a textbook in front of you, without having to have your computer in front of you, some website, Desmo, something like that, where you are taking, in many cases, shortcuts to answer the questions, to assignments and such. You need to ask me questions when you're not understanding it, but I have some built-in resources. The textbook, you'll get a copy of the textbook, and you can use that, of course. You'll also get, there are notes built into each one of the sections that you can print out and use those to help you as well with examples worked out. And there are some instructional videos that I have built into the class as well to try to cover all the topics in each section, section by section in each chapter. There are also practice problems that you can work on. They're typically the odd-numbered problems that are in the textbook. The answers are in the back of the book, so as you're practicing those problems, to make sure that you can do the problems that are in assignments that are usually even-numbered problems. And on the problems on the assignments, of course, make sure that you are complete in your work, complete in your understanding, and that it is neat. I'll talk about that a little bit more here. Now, those are all important things to be successful, but you're also going to have to do a decent amount of review at home. I will make sure that you get a practice booklet. I will make sure that you get maybe some flashcards, and of course a resource of videos that you can be using to better understand the material, because you need to be practicing for the AP exam even as early as first semester to get you ready. Now, we'll spend a lot of time, most of fourth quarter, reviewing, but you need to be studying and memorizing prior to that. You can't use a notebook, you can't use a computer or your phone when you're taking the exam, so you're going to have this stuff memorized. Again, if this is going to be too much for you, you're a senior perhaps and you want it to float by this year, you need to talk to your counselor and get out of this. I really am expecting a great deal of work from you, including practicing problems and asking questions. And you can ask those questions in the face-to-face class meetings. I will go over a few of the topics of the week and such, but I will also answer questions, and I will most likely give you some type of a short quiz to see if you're staying caught up, to see if you understand the material. If you are falling behind, or if you're not practicing the material properly, you're just getting the problems over with and you don't really understand what you're doing, then you're going to struggle on these quizzes, and it's going to have an adverse effect on your overall grade. Now, the very first chapter, it's the prerequisite chapter. It's not chapter 1, it's chapter P for prerequisite. It has some algebra topics in there, and most of this is pretty straightforward. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the assessment is done online. But in all the other chapters, you're going to be turning in papers to me from each section of material. There will be an assignment that will be given. You'll do all your work on paper. You'll show all your work properly. you'll understand what you're showing, or otherwise you could get called on that easy enough, because it's usually easy to see what students are perhaps using approaches that aren't discussed, that maybe somebody showed them. Hopefully they understand how it's done. I don't have a problem with tutor. I have a problem with a tutor that does the work for you and you don't understand it. Make sure that you're ready for each assessment. That's where the practice problems come in. That's where the videos come in, the notes and such. And then of course tests are available only after all your chapter assignments are submitted and graded with a minimum score needed. Now, if you're in this class, most likely you had me for pre-calculus last year. There might be some students that transferred from other schools. So you already know all this stuff. At least you should be pretty familiar with this. But if you have any questions, you can always ask me. I'll be happy to help you, especially if you're new to the school. Academic integrity. Way too much silliness going on. And by silliness I mean shortcuts and cheating. Students that are using information from websites to answer questions, to complete assignments, to complete tests, but they don't understand what they're doing. They're just copying it down. Letting somebody else use your papers, or using somebody else's papers. Either way, it's still cheating. So you do your own work, you show your work properly, you're neat with your assignments, use graph paper when necessary. I would suggest that you do your work in pencil so that you can erase if necessary, and make sure that you have everything kind of figured out in your head, and if not, ask questions. Ask me, and I'll be happy to help you with that. But you need to make sure that you're honest with your work, because if I see that you're not honest with your work, students get zeros, and that typically will adversely affect a grade, a quarter grade, a semester grade, and you don't want that to happen. I know most of you guys are interested in getting good grades, and that means that most of you should be interested in truly learning the material, so that you can use this information not only on the AP exam, because if you do well on the AP exam, they're going to probably put you in Calculus 2, and so they throw you right in the middle of techniques of integration, and if you haven't learned the material going into there and have a good feel for it, you're going to get punished in Calc 2. We don't want that to happen. So ask questions, do your own work, practice the problems, show up on Wednesdays. If you cannot be there on Wednesdays for those quizzes and for those opportunities to ask questions, you need to talk to your counselor about getting a different class, because I expect you to be there on each Wednesday, and I expect you to be there so that you can take your quiz, so you can ask your questions, and so that I can thoroughly check to see how all my students are doing in AP Calculus. Best of luck with this class.